We're definitely live now. All right, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Lyric Rivera, a neurodivergent rebel. You may have seen me around, and I'm here with a really awesome guest. And I'm gonna let the guest introduce themselves. So let me ask, what's your name and what are your pronouns?
Sure. My name is Nicola Rose. She, her, hers. I am a film director and most recently the director and writer of a feature film about a neurodivergent 13-year-old girl who discovers she has a condition called synesthesia. And a lot of you out there may know about this, but for those who don't, we'll talk about it. And the movie's name is Magnetosphere, and you can see it in North America on Prime Video, Apple TV. This is in Canada and the US, and it is spreading to other territories. But right now, Prime, Apple, tons of other places, Google Play. I forget it all, but if you look up Magnetosphere, that is the name of the movie.
And it is like you shared it with me, so I got to get a preview of it. And
Yes,
it's just the most sweet, wholesome thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is touching. But I realized that I don't like personally like my experience is nothing like the character of the movie. And so I was like, I really believe in that nothing about us without us kind of thing. So it's like I don't feel educated enough to really say anything or share anything about this. So thank you for coming on to share about it too. I'm really glad you're willing to have this conversation with us today and with my readers because I know I've got some readers who are synesthetes. So there are probably people here who actually very familiar with the experience, especially because that's kind of common in autistic people, is my understanding.
yeah, it co-occurs a lot with autism. I think it co-occurs a lot with ADHD. Um, I would not necessarily consider myself a synesthesia expert. I am a person who made a fictional movie about a fictional character living with synesthesia, but I did have to become a sort of short-term armchair expert on synesthesia by doing as much research as possible for about 2, 3 years in preparation to make the movie. So
Yeah.
I went to the primary sources. Like I went to basically there's a giant Facebook group. It's the first place I went. Giant Facebook group for people with synesthesia. And the thing about this perceptual phenomenon, this neurodivergence of synesthesia that people may not know is that it manifests itself in like hundreds of potential different forms. So no two people who have it the same way. And the way the character has it, she's 13 in the movie, so it's like the quick pitch is puberty meets synesthesia, so it's like very specific thing. The way she has it in the movie, everything she experiences is based very literally on an experience that a synesthete, which is a term for people with synesthesia, told me about. However, it is a movie, so things are necessarily like condensed to kind of be part of a story and so forth. Um, they were not firsthand experiences. They were experiences that people told me about and gave me permission to incorporate into the story. And I worked with a whole bunch of neurodiversity consultants. Obviously, you have to.
Ah,
Nothing about us without us. So, I was running it by these people as we did the movie to say, hey, does this feel authentic? Does this feel authentic for your kind of synesthesia? And the thing is, you're never going to get the same answer twice. Like
oh,
what?
of course.
Yeah, it's like with any neurodivergence, any perceptual experience, what might totally ring true for one person is going to be foreign and weird to another. It'll be like, that's not like anesthesia, you know.
Yeah.
So
And so I think that's so important that you really did like throughout the process make sure you had that input from those who actually are in this community and those who actually do have this experience. Because as an autistic person, I've seen so many autism portrayals where we like who consulted on this, and it's like usually not autistic people are not involved. They don't have input, and it is just you can tell. You can tell, right? And then also the representation is also so stigmatized and bad a lot of times. And seeing this, it seemed very respectful, very um just very like human. The character is a very human character. You didn't use the character as like a prop device, which autistic people and neurodivergent people often are used as in movies. And I just thought it was such a very neurodiversity affirming way of viewing a neurodivergent character, which we need more of that, in my opinion. We don't have enough of that. So thank you for,
you're
you
welcome. I
know,
appreciate that. The thing about it is that, I was thinking about what you're saying is like, here are these certain media portrayals of autistic people, and clearly nobody has been consulted. And it's just like, what the hell? There's no excuse in this day and age. We have the whole entire internet,
Yeah.
there's no excuse to not find people, go on to Reddit. Go on, there's no excuse to not find people to talk to about their experiences. It's like they are literally all around us and everywhere and diagnosed and undiagnosed, and this is not an uncommon thing.
Yeah.
Uh, Synesthesia is not an uncommon thing. I have from a reliable source this figure that I often cite in interviews that saying that 4% of the population has it.
Oh,
That's
wow.
huge.
That's a significant number.
I think it's more because I don't think a lot of people I actually know for a fact a lot of people, do not know they have it because, like, you don't go around questioning, your own perception. You don't go around thinking like, "Hey, um, is the like" let's say that you see the color red and it produces a tone for you, like a certain pitch, like B flat or B flat produces red. I don't know, be the other way around. Um, let's say that that happens for you. You wouldn't necessarily, especially as a child, if it happened when you were a child, you wouldn't like question that. You wouldn't be like, "Gosh, do other people have this red with B flat?" Like,
Yeah, no, of course not. Like, I didn't know I was autistic until I was 29 when I was finally
"Oh, you're
diagnosed. And it's like, before I was diagnosed autistic, I just assumed everyone experienced the world the same way I did. And I was just garbage because I was struggling when other people weren't. I literally didn't have that perspective. And, that's kind of that double Damien Milton double empathy problem where it's like people assume everyone has the same experience of the world they do, unless someone kind of proves otherwise. And so, it's like really important to have these different conversations about how we all perceive and experience the world differently. And I love that, when we have respectful representation in any kind of film that like just kind of draws that narrative home that's like, you don't know how the person you're engaging with is experiencing and engaging with the world. And we really need to not assume. And so like knowing neurodiversity is a thing is just so powerful, I think, for a lot of us because I had so much blame and just you really just thought I was a broken person before I found out I was autistic. And then I was like, oh my goodness, once I realized the truth, it was like I just was not properly equipped and there was a lot of blame put on me that was really unfair because it's like other people had like an environment that was set up to cater to their needs.
yeah,
And so of course they were thriving, but meanwhile, I was like in the same environment that wasn't set up to support me. It's like being a mechanic in a job that's not given tools, right? Like if you hire a mechanic, in your mechanic shop and then he can't do an oil change because you don't give him tools, like it would be your fault for not giving him tools. He can't do it by hand, right? And so it's
blame
like,
the mechanic in this
yeah,
or yeah.
it's just
Did you
wild the way we do that to neurodivergent people.
and did you find that, as you were growing up that, undiagnosed, but obviously you knew that there was something different about you, you just didn't know what it was, and that hits home that idea of believing you're garbage. Did you find that you, received bullying from adults as a child?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I had, when I was picked on by my peers in like elementary school, like I would go to my teacher and be like, they're being mean to me, they're picking on me. And the teacher's response is, well, if you would just act normal, they would leave you alone. And I'm just like, but I don't understand, and I just thought all the other kids were irrational and mean. And I like, guys, like, what do you mean? This is my normal. Like, you have no frame of reference for that, right? Like, normal, what is normal? It's such a
Well,
relative thing.
you're way ahead of me, and people ask, "What's the message of the film?" It's remember that no two people perceive the world the same way. Duh.
Yes.
It's
And
like
that's a really important message. And that's kind of like the whole thing with when I started talking about neurodiversity 9 years ago now, it's like I want people to understand and stop assuming that everyone has the same experience of the world, whether it's being autistic, synesthesia, ADHD, you know, plurality, all these different neurodivergences that there are, because there are so many. And a lot of them we don't even talk about, but that,
and we
we
know that.
don't know. Yeah, that's true. And I think there are probably some that don't even have names, you
I
know?
so too, because that's one of the things that came through with synesthesia is that there are all these kinds that like people don't discuss them with each other, and you don't, like I was saying earlier, you kind of don't even discuss it with yourself. You don't question your own perception. You don't question like, do I see red the way other people see red or whatever. That's not synesthesia. That's just like would count as qualia or something like that. But it's just you don't question. You go around with your own mental landscape the way it is, and that's where you live. And you don't, as especially as a child growing up, it's a long time before you have reason to question where you live inside your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's just like, it's just so hard because the world puts all these expectations on you, without really, sometimes realizing that those expectations might not be reasonable or kind or compassionate or even fair. And that happens a lot to neurodivergent young people. And it
Yeah,
just really hurts to be so misunderstood.
I'm so sorry. Say that again.
I said it really hurts to be so misunderstood.
It it's painful in a way that kind of like reverberates through the ages as you get older because it still happens in different way. Obviously you learn to protect yourself more as you get older, but there are still echoes of that sentiment of you, you looked like a normal girl, so I thought you were a normal girl. It happens in social situations, it happens with friendships, it happens with groups, it happens with dating, especially happens with dating. It's like you looked normal, why don't you act normal? Um, I'm no longer invested in this because you differ from the picture that
Yeah. And, like, I have so many feelings about normalcy, right? Because even, like, thinking about when we call someone neurotypical, it kind of assumes that there is a typical default, but, like,
I
really
thought
thinking
about
about
that.
typical, like, what's typical is really dependent on time, space, and culture. Like, for example, there are some cultures today where eye contact and things like that are not socially normative. In America, it's a big thing. If you're not looking at eye contact, they think you're lying. Or like, thinking about time and space, like, back in, many, many years ago in the United States, men used to wear wigs and makeup and, the color for girls was pink was blue and boys was pink. And so it's like all of these cultural norms are dependent on time, space, like culture and all these things. And so it's like normal is really relative.
It is really relative and it's arbitrary. So much of it is arbitrary, so much of it is cultural. It's crazy to me that you just mentioned eye contact because I am not autistic. I was tested for it and I happen not to be apparently, but I didn't really think I was, but I wondered. And I do have ADHD. As a child, I would not default to making eye contact with people necessarily. That is something I think runs in my family. Um, I don't think it's an autistic trait for me, but I do think it's a neurodivergent trait. So I have taught myself over the years that has been a learned trait to look
Mhm.
right in between the eye. You know what I'm talking about? I look right,
Oh, yeah.
bridge the nose the other person. It doesn't bother me one bit because, like, I'm, I'm many decades past the point where this was a thing, but I can remember being called out that by adults who should have known better. As a child,
Yeah.
you need to learn social skills. You don't even look people in the eyes. Saying this in front of other people, saying this in front of your peers, it's like, this obviously leaves you prey to like the other people your age. But
Mhm.
anyway, the point of the movie is to say that here's synesthesia, which is it could have been something else. It could have been dyslexia. It could have been another neurodivergence. Synesthesia happens to be very cinematic. So it was, sort of a challenge I set myself. Like, how do you portray synesthesia on screen? Because it's very visual and it's very auditory and that's cinema. And I wanted to see, could I portray it in such a way that it would resonate with people? And it can't be accurate because, like, there is no accurate, but it can be authentic, uh,
Yeah.
authentic.
And let me ask because it's been out for how long has it been out now?
About a month and a half.
Okay, a month and a half. So still really new. How has it been kind of received by the community?
This has been really interesting. It's been, I really had no expectations one way or another going in. Um, but it's been an incredibly warm and resounding reception. Now, when I say resounding, the thing with independent films, this is why you have to go watch it on Prime Video and on Apple TV and on these other platforms it's on. Independent, true independent films, and I mean a film that is made not because anybody wants it to be made other than you. It is just it's what people sort of semi-derisively refer to as a passion project. I don't really love that term, but that's what we're talking about. It's something that you decide to make for yourself, with all the resources that you can. Anyway, it's been received resoundingly warmly, but it can't go very far except for word of mouth. So people need
Yes.
watch Magnetosphere, look up Magnetosphere, share
Give it a review.
yeah, so that people can see it. And but the the criticisms that, the reviews that came out have all been just incredibly, almost effusively positive. And
Nice.
I think it's hit a nerve with a lot of neurodivergent people. And it goes back to your question of like, are there even any neurotypical people? Because it seems to hit a nerve with, it's like, okay, is everybody just neurodivergent, or has everybody felt different and weird?
Well,
I
we have this society that like tries to channel everyone into this like assimilation to like be this one way. And that doesn't work for so many people, and it just really it really is really constricting for a lot of people. And there may be a lot of ways you might not fit into that norm, whether it's neurodivergence or you're part of another marginalized group. I think a lot of different people have had that feeling of really being just othered, or at least like a lot of us like know what it's like to like be made fun of and to be picked on, especially in school and our teenage years, because that is such a hard time to exist. Like teenage years is hard and childhood is so hard. And I think it's something that a lot of people relate to, whether they're neurodivergent or not, just because of that way people are so mean to one another, unfortunately, especially young people, like they're experienced to it in school because they're like shoved into like, a classroom with people and you don't have a choice of who you're around, or like, like being put into pairs and groups to work on projects. And,
and that's
it's like, oh,
in the movie. Yeah.
yeah.
It's I always felt growing up, I mean, not as a small child, but once I got a little more aware of things, I always felt as though the message was be yourself so long as yourself is socially acceptable. That was the
Yeah.
message. And it's a really garbled and really toxic message. And I think as a society, I hope we're moving towards something that is a little more all encompassing, a little more inclusive, a little more recognizing of people who vary from the norm. I am not sure that this is so true, but I do know. I don't know. You've been talking about neurodiversity, you said, for 9 years. So have you noticed any sort of bigger motion toward understanding that this is a thing, understanding what it is?
Oh yeah, it's been a big change, at least especially thinking about autism, but also neurodiversity as a whole from when I started, 9 years ago. And, I started my Neurodivergent Rebel blog 9 years ago because I was newly diagnosed autistic, and the psychologist who diagnosed me luckily recommended books and media by autistic people themselves, which was really good. And
Mhm.
I, being hyperlexic, I digest text. Like I don't read, like I digest text really quickly. And
Yeah.
so I digested all the books and resources that were recommended to me very quickly. And being, in this true stereotypical autistic fashion, I became hyper focused, obsessed about autism.
Sure.
Uh, and when I wanted more, because I was like, I must know everything. And I went and Googled autism, and it was so bleak, so grim. It was really all non-autistic medical professionals talking about how autism was this really bad thing. It ruined people's lives, or parents of autistic kids who were still, honestly, a lot of them very young, too young to really know what their futures could even be like, but had already like taken on this mindset that this was a death sentence for their entire family and autism was the biggest tragedy ever. And like a lot of the narrative was like autism is always and only something bad because we've got a medical definition where, because being autistic is defined and gate kept through a medical book that says you must be struggling clinically significant struggles in like
Yeah.
one of multiple areas to be autistic. There's like no definition of an autistic person who's been successful or who's not struggling or who's okay. And so that
Yeah.
was really reflected 9 years ago. And now, um, it's more and more so, autistic people actually have control of our own narrative. Like we are more in the forefront of things, which is really good to see. And I think that during 2020, when everyone was kind of locked down, neurodiversity exploded even further on TikTok and on social media because people were stuck at home with the internet, and we had this boom in awareness and understanding, and people kind of mistake that as, oh, suddenly there are more autistic people, suddenly there are more ADHDers. It's like, no, no, no. We've always been here. Like I'm
Yeah.
38. I was autistic, 38 years ago. I just wasn't diagnosed. I just didn't have a name for what it was. And so many people, especially like my age and older, and us adults that were like already out of school in 2025 when screenings for the young people became more prevalent. Like we were here, we just were missed, we were ignored, and the criteria was really narrow and different. And so we weren't being identified. And so, like, we're having almost like this neurodivergent renaissance. And, seeing current political affairs is just horrible because I feel like they want to drag us back in that direction. And
Yeah,
it's
but
like,
having that
please
thought
no.
seems as though we're coming a little full circle here in a
Yeah.
undesirable way. Um, I feel like there are certain generations, older generations still, who understandably define autism as, oh, well, that's only if you're like nonverbal and rocking back and forth, and things that you can barely speak or have to be you know taught to interact with people at all, and these are things that are very outmoded, but they may not have uh, these may be older people who don't necessarily have too much experience with a full spectrum or a greater spectrum of autistic people, so that their experience or their understanding is not. I think there's still a learning curve. There's still a ways to go in the learning curve to understand that neurodivergence exists. There's a reason that the word spectrum is used. there, there's a reason that we talk about it as being on a spectrum, is because it isn't all extreme. It isn't all, I feel like I'm really saying something hackneyed now, but it isn't all Rain Man. It isn't all Young Sheldon. It isn't all, so, it's, it manifests itself in so many different forms that people don't expect. And then, of course, there's the issue of neurodivergent women and girls and them being underrepresented, especially in fiction. There's like nothing out well, there's stuff, but you know, it's still sort of seen as a boys thing. It's
And
still,
it's really seen as a pasty mayonnaise person thing, which is unfortunate because neurodivergent people who are, of color, or they are from lower income families, often are labeled as having behavioral issues. And like, when I was a kid in school too, it's like my autistic traits were very definitely recognized, but they weren't seen as being autistic. They were seen as behavioral issues. And so because of that,
yeah,
like I was really heavily put through that behavioral lens where like any autistic trait that was visible, other than like being really gifted in reading, was seen as something that just needed to be squished and expunged and gotten rid of. And like, so because I was also really gifted at reading, anytime I struggled, it was this whole, oh, well, see, you're really gifted in reading, so that means you're just being lazy at math and you're not trying at this other thing. And if you would just apply yourself, and it was almost like a gotcha moment used against me because it was like, well, you're really skilled in one area. That means everything else, if you're not skilled at, it means you're just not applying yourself and you're not trying. And it's just really a bad way to look at things. And, we do this a lot with neurodivergent people. And then, the other thing about it is like, and it'll still happen from time to time, is like, I will share about being autistic and I'll have someone drop into my comments and go, yeah, but you're not really autistic. Real autistic people do this, that, and the other thing. And they'll list a bunch of things that I don't necessarily share or want to repeat publicly because it's always the same kinds of things they throw out, but they're actually things that I did when I was a
yeah,
kid. And like I'm not there anymore, but it's like you're using my kid does this. And it's like, yeah, I did that when I was that age too.
right.
So it's like you
Yeah.
don't understand masking and that we get coping skills.
As we get older, we learn to, there are people, who, if they're, I don't want to say lucky enough, but if they are skillful enough, if they have the resources to learn. I had to learn as a child because one of the myriad things I got teased for, and that really came to talk about the movie, but hey, we're on this now.
I
One of,
know we had questions and we've just gone into a whole conversation. And I'm like,
yeah,
hey, I like the flow. We'll just go with this.
go with the flow. So one of the things that I got picked on, they were endless, but one of them was that I tended to talk in a sort of way where I didn't separate my words. So, and this is a neurodivergent trait that has been documented, and it's not just me. This is not unique to me. Let's just face it. This is not a and if I'm like super emotional or something, this will still happen because I will not be focusing on masking. The energy will be going elsewhere. But I would I other kids would, a kid would be like, "Oh, say something and I'll imitate you. I'll imitate your voice." He would do that to all the kids, and I would say like, "What do you want me to say?" And he would be like, "What do you want me to say?" And because
Oh no.
that was what I sounded like to other I used to talk a lot like this without really realizing what I was talking like. When I was little, I would sort of talk like this without really thinking about what I was talking about. So, as I grew older, I had to learn to separate the words, you know, to separate the thoughts, to speak in a way. I mean, I think this has only helped because I have to do a lot of forward facing public speaking kind of things for the movies and stuff. And I used to perform, and diction's important and speaking is important and all these things. But I don't think that hyper awareness was healthy. I don't think being teased for it was the way to become aware. Um,
No.
you talk about being made to feel like you were garbage and wrong and broken. Um, this film, this is one story, and it is fictional, and it's light, and it's a family film, by which I don't mean it's a children's film. It is literally not, but
Yeah.
it's about a child, and it's contained within a certain time period, just like a few months. So really, you can't talk about getting into deep issues here. But I tried to touch on that as much as possible, that thing of being made to feel as though you were garbage because society is not set up for you, because, as you say, it doesn't give you the tools that you need. It's like not giving the mechanic his wrench. Here, fix my car, but oh, FYI, I'm not giving you any tools. Um, that I think a lot of is how we're treated as was how we were treated as children. I'm hoping it's better now for children in different places. I don't know. I don't have children, so I don't know. I hope it's better. What I do know is that adults, especially the adults who identify as being most inclusive and kind and fuzzy and warm and tolerant, tend to be the biggest bullies. And I don't want to generalize and say this is always the case, but so often it does seem that people don't check themselves at the door and look and see, are the things that I identify as and the values that I espouse, are they at all in line with how I treat other people and how I might be responsible for deeply hurting other
Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
I
And
feel like
it happens way too much too. And, part of it is just like I think, we have this thing where it's like treat others how you want to be treated. And it's like, well, sort of, but also, but what if others don't want to be treated how you want to be treated? You know what I mean? Like
yeah, it's
treating me
true.
like I'm not an autistic person doesn't do me a service. It actually really messed up my brain. And it's like the past 9 years since I found out I was autistic, like I hated myself for the first 29 years of my life. And then I realized I was autistic. And it's like I always like felt like I had a lot of compassion for animals and other people, but for myself, no self-compassion for me. I wasn't worthy of that. And so I really hated myself. And then when I like had that understanding finally of like, oh my goodness, my brain is really different and it was really unfair and I wasn't garbage. And it was like I started to have that little taste of self-compassion for the first time in my life. And I realized like pretty much all the little things I had shoved into this box that I was trying to like repress and suffocate out of myself, with the
Yeah.
exception of things other people thought were useful, was autism. And then once I learned about neurodiversity, I was like, my neurodivergent traits, I was like, these are unacceptable. These are the things I must get rid of. And it was
But
just
no,
like this
here's
moment.
it. Right. Here's where this comes from. All of a sudden you have a name for it. You have a you can name the source.
Hmm. Yeah. knowledge is power and so much of a ways, like having a language for an experience. And you know, that was kind of the same way for me when I found out about my gender experience and like, oh, non-binary, gender fluid, that's a thing. Oh, okay, because I'd always been around trans people my whole life, but I'd only been around binary trans people. And I was like, well, I don't fit that box. And I always kind of like was like, I'm queer and I'm trans adjacent in some way, but I don't really know how. And, you know, I was like, I feel like I relate to that experience, but I don't know, you know, and it was like, then I was like, oh,
Would
non-binary is a thing.
be powerful to you specifically.
Oh yeah, and it's like, you know, once you have that language, you can talk about it because like I just always kept those experiences to myself and just like being autistic and neurodivergent, it was like all the things about myself that I kind of knew, but I was like nobody will understand this, so I'm just not going to talk about it because I thought there was not a single person in the world who would understand these traits and these struggles I had or even like sometimes, you know, my gifts and things I would tone down because I was like nobody's going to understand this or you know people are like oh, you're too much. You need to stop being so happy about this thing. That's a little thing. And now I'm just like, oh, I'm sad for you that you can't find the joy in the little things in life, you know, instead of being ashamed that I would get excited about little things. And it's just like a different way of looking at yourself.
You know, I'm somebody who doesn't necessarily, which is fine. I don't necessarily have language to describe what is different about me because I don't qualify. According to the tests psychological tests that I've taken and so forth, I have ADHD. I do have some other things here and there. Um, it turns out that you know, I'm not autistic apparently, but I did have synesthesia as a child, and that was the story I meant to tell. Actually, I've written a little bit, actually, pretty extensively at this point about this. I wrote a piece for it for the magazine Talk House, which was really fun. Um, Synesthesia, occurs in so many different ways. The way I had it was that I could. And I remember this in a very fragmentary sort of way at this point, but I could see music. There was a certain piece of music that when it played, I liked the sound of the instruments. And I could see them dancing around as kind of green and orange and blue, like dancing lines, like maybe a little neon looking like bars at a playground, kind of. And it wasn't until I was like, this is what I mean about like not having language to describe. I remembered that. I remembered it, but I didn't ascribe any significance to it, even as I was 70% through doing research for a film literally about a child with synesthesia. I was just not connecting the dots. It's like, part of neurodivergence is like being really smart, but really slow. It's like, I am speaking from personal experience. I'm not calling anybody else slow, but I feel like this is a thing. It's like, you can be, you can have an IQ of 175 and be dumb about the dumbest things. It's just like, that's been my experience.
Paradox of a person. That's how I would describe myself. It's like
Yeah.
I'm really good at what I'm good at, but if it's not one of my things, I suck at it.
Oh my gosh. I had to step down from a work study job in college because I did not know how to operate a coffee maker.
Oh,
And I went to Columbia University, which, I'm sure there are some stupid people who've gotten in, but typically you don't. And again, had to step down from my work study job because I could not figure out how to operate a coffee pot. Now, the problem with this kind of exemplifies what I'm talking about for me is that, I think I am a very smart person, and at the same time, tell me, oh, here's a key, here's a lock, here's a door, here's how to open this door. I'll be like, can you do it for me?
relatable.
Nation locks. Oh my God. Like I know
Oh my gosh, combination locks my nightmare in school.
somebody asks me a question here. Nicola, do you ever feel the rhythms and sound textures with the music you hear? Wonderful question. I'm just going to answer it out loud. I don't remember because this happened 30 years ago ish that I remember the last time I remember having any sort of synesthetic um, experiences. I don't think that they went beyond visual. Um, I just remember sort of lying in bed and seeing like the shapes dancing around before me. I know that I have interviewed and talked to and heard about different synesthetes who do associate music with texture or sound with texture or color with texture, or for that matter, even like concepts like days of the week, like Tuesday is bumpy and Wednesday's smooth or whatever. So texture's a thing, and that's one that's really hard to communicate on film. I suppose you could. That would be a hell of a cinematic challenge to set yourself. The screenwriter, director is like, how do you depict this? Another question. Oh, hi, Rowland. Rowland, does your synesthesia come back and forth? Unfortunately, no. The last I remember, unless there's stuff, and I think with all of us who are neurodivergent or like not, there's probably stuff that we're unaware of, right? But so all I can say is, as far as I know, and that's all I know, as far as I know, I don't have synesthesia as an adult. I wish it was still there. I'm sure it would be interesting, but um, I'm not aware of it being around.
And see, that's the really interesting thing about neurodivergent brains, and I think that people need to understand is like there are so many types of neurodivergence, and like being autistic and ADHD, these are things that often can be like we're born this way, we're this way forever, but not all neurodivergence is like permanent. Some people can kind of go through a state of being neurodivergent and then they may not be that way their whole lives in that particular way. And then a lot of us who are neurodivergent, we're not just neurodivergent in one way. So all the different layers of neurodivergence can interact with each other in different ways and create really different experiences. And, we often talk about autism, dyslexia, ADHD, OCD, things like that, but we don't talk about the fact that like, there's, things like, synesthesia that may kind of as our brains grow might not continue to stay there, or like PTSD, CPTSD, those things might be transient. You can get over CPTSD, you can get over PTSD, or you may not have started out with that difference, or even anxiety and depression. Like these will majorly influence how a person experiences the world around them, and it could be long term, short term, forever. Yeah, but either way, like when that person is in this state where their brain is experiencing the world different, they are going to need more support to, or at least understanding and compassion in a world that isn't set up to take those needs into consideration. And so I think that's really, really cool to talk about the fact that, some of us are always going to be neurodivergent and some of us might not be there forever, or some might come into it later in life, just like, they say, disability is the only group that if you stay alive long enough, you eventually will become a member of the disability community if you live long enough. It is very true. Like, uh, like that's something to think. Like we're not in these static states. Just like being when I was an autistic child, um, my support needs were very different than they are now as an adult. And I assume as I age, my support needs will probably increase again, just like they were when I was younger. And it's the conversation we don't have enough.
No, these things are fluid and there are ebbs and flows, and we don't start out the way we end up. But it's interesting because, paradoxically, we also are a very fully formed version of ourselves when we're born. It's just that as experiences accrue, layers also amass. And so, we take on different things, whether it's mood stuff, whether it's neurodivergences, whether it's, you know, um, behavioral stuff, which all obviously intersect with each other. And we become more and more complex as we get older. And so we are, we might be 70% or more. I don't know what the figure would be. We're a high degree already ourselves when we come out of the womb, but then like later on, there's so much more that informs the pieces of us and who we are. And that's something that, on film, on TV, I don't think you could adequately explore that in a movie. I think you'd have to have a whole TV series. I think you
Oh
would have.
yeah. Oh, that would
Yeah.
be such a good TV series. I could totally see the movie being a TV series.
Oh, I could too. As a matter of fact, I thought about that. That was something that I thought about. Um, I don't have experience in the TV space.
Or
No,
even like a mini series, if they do like a little 6 episode, like
uh, as she gets older and what happens to her. But I kind of like this character. I don't know. I don't know, I'm not set on this, but I kind of like this character of Maggie being set in amber at 13, turning 14. Because to me, that's the most interesting part of people have asked me, why do you make films about teenagers? Because most of my work has been about teenagers, or like preteens. And I'm like, I don't know, they're more interesting. everything is so vivid, everything is so raw, everything is so deeply felt. It's a point of transition. You're becoming who you're going to be in a much more like visceral way than when you're like 37, and it's just not that interesting. And, in comparison, um there's another part of it, which is that as a director, which is completely separate from that, I like working with kid actors because you get the best performances out of them. Yeah, people say,
Okay.
oh yeah, people say, I mean, you have to cast well. Casting is like 99% of it, but people say, don't work with kids, don't work with animals, and it's stupid. It's like, well, excuse me for saying stupid, but it's like i- i- kids are rich, and and kids are deep. You get so much out of, you have a kid who is a good actor. um they're not going to be trained. They're a kid,
Hmm.
and the ones who are trained actually tend to be a little scary in ways that, no disrespect, but overly trained children give me the willies generally. But you have a kid who's a really good actor. You have a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 16, really good actor. They, without doing anything, they plumb depths that a 40-year-old actually doesn't have access to anymore.
Hmm.
Even though they have
Hmm.
training, they have the experience, they have the life, you know, highs and lows to draw upon. They have other advantages, but the ace in the hole, I can only think of what's the word I'm thinking of, the huge advantage that the young actor has is just being able to draw from the gut something that they're never going to feel so deeply ever again.
Yeah, and I think, like, with this film especially, I think it's really nice that it is, has a young lead character because, like, being a young person, like I said, is just so hard, and just to have, like, that representation as a young person to say, "Hey, it is okay, and you are beautiful as you are," and, yes, people kinda suck sometimes, unfortunately, but, that's a them thing, that's not a you thing, and,
Wish
you
there'd been
know
media with that when we were growing. I'm assuming you're, oh yeah, you said you're
I'm
similar age.
38, yeah.
And I wish there had been more media like that when we were growing up, because there really wasn't. If anything, what a time to be a teenager. It was the opposite. It was I don't know,
Very
Lagoon,
mean.
know what the hell it was. American Idol. It was, you know, everything that was.
Or that movie where they took the nerdy, geeky girl and turned her into,
Oh,
like
it's
was it
Pygmalion. Yeah, it's the Pygmalion story. It's an old story. It's she's all that. It's Rachel Lee Cook, and of course she's super hot under her glass.
Never Been was it Never Been
Oh, never.
Kissed? And then
Yeah,
and
and
then there was so many like that, even, like, Breakfast Club, which is a little bit older, which, I love Breakfast Club, but it's like, I'm sorry, they took the best character and,
mhm,
like,
gave her.
made her preppy, and I'm like, "What? Why?" And that
Yeah,
what's the message for those of us who are kinda like little alt kids that are little, the rest of the world's so strange. It's like, "Conform and assimilate, and then you will be
like
loved," and it's like, that is so toxic.
you don't exist. Yeah, and I definitely did not exist. I am still not convinced I exist. I may not be here at all. Um, but my movie is here. It's online. It's on Prime Video. It's on. I feel like I should mention this because more people keep joining.
Yes.
Great.
Yes, yes,
Hi.
yes, and there will be a replay of this if anyone missed the
Yeah, yeah.
beginning. It'll take a
Type
while for
out.
Substack to process. It'll probably be up in, like, an hour or so.
Awesome. Yeah, Substack is great. I love Substack. It's like the friendliest and most honest. I hate that word, but like it's the friendliest and most like genuine feeling social media platform out there. I love it
It's not
very.
rage baity. Like,
It's
I've got a big Facebook page, and I have to, like, babysit it, and I'm blocking hundreds of people a week because it sends my stuff to rage engage of people who will be opposed to what I have to say, that will be angered by what I have to say, and Substack, like, I hear there are people that are really nasty and toxic on here, but I haven't seen them. I've only blocked 2 people in all the years I've been on Substack.
yeah. Well, I joined Substack pretty recently myself, so I haven't had too much experience to speak of, but yeah, I never noticed anything like that.
Yeah, me neither. It's like, I love it. It's just nice to have a space where people are really community minded, and it's actually, like, feeding me to like similar people that like, we can build community with, not people who just want to tear each other down and people who just like hate you for existing. And that's like so much of what Facebook is. And like on Facebook, everything's set to you must follow for like 24 to 48 hours before you can comment. And then people will literally just follow so they can and wait so they can put one comment and then be removed because I'm like out of here. We don't do that. We don't tear each other down in my space and we don't debate people's right to exist authentically as themselves as long as you're not trying to hurt anybody. It's like, disagreements are pineapple on pizza, they say, which, yeah, I'm so for pineapple on pizza, just but not for should trans people be allowed to exist.
I'm all for pineapple on pizza, but yeah,
Yeah.
other people's existence is not up for discussion.
Yeah. Okay. No, this is going to be controversial. Candy corn or no candy corn?
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like this is one of changes with stages in life, and yes, I'm hesitating. Um,
I know. It's like, uh-oh, they're going to come for you.
I me now. This is the hard hitting ones that I'm afraid of. No candy for now. I don't think I can take it. I think my constitution is too weak. But when I was a kid, I was into it.
Yeah. I liked it when I was a kid. You like bite the little white pieces off and turn them into vampire fangs.
Mhm. Yeah, oh, yeah. Little fangs.
Little fangs, candy corn fangs. Like, but now it's like, no, no thanks. The candy corn and those little pumpkins, just not my thing. But if you love the candy corn, I still love you. It's okay.
Yeah,
Anyone
like
listening, if you love candy corn, it's okay.
yeah, that's the thing. Um, it's just it's something that may like all things work for you at different times in your life and not at others.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
So go ahead.
no, please go for it.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, throughout your work, with the community and things, were there consistent like themes that people in the community, when they heard you were making this movie about synesthesia, like, was there anything that people like repeatedly said they were hoping like that you were able to touch on or do or to convey with this movie on synesthesia, or?
Not too much because I think people were just hoping for it to be represented in an authentic and, you know, not like a way that was not from imagination. Like it's so easy to just make shit up, and it's such an irresponsible way to approach something like this that does affect so many people. And it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's not necessarily a positive thing. It's not necessarily, some people have it really hard where it like is deleterious to them. Other people, they like, other people might experience it as more of an enhancement of how they see the world, which is basically what our main character experiences in the end. But she has to go through a lot to get there. And again, it's contained in a small space. Like we only see her for a few months, and it's a story about a 13-year-old girl. So it's light. It's not the same
Yeah.
story you might tell about somebody in their 30s. But
Yeah.
I think there was just such a spectrum of experiences that I ultimately ended up running into that I don't think there was anything particular that people were like hoping to see so much as they wanted to tell me about their experiences
Hmm.
and be like, oh, could you include this? And ultimately, I heard more experiences from people than I could ever include. Because I
Oh
must,
yeah.
oh, yeah, my gosh, in the early stages, I must have interviewed like 70 people. And,
Oh
ultimately,
wow.
yeah.
You did your research. I love that.
Well, when I say interviewed, I mean like chatted with briefly.
Mhm.
Ultimately, it came down to like 4 or 5 people who were the most, um, what am I trying to say? Who hewed most closely to what is depicted in the film. Like Maggie in the film is closest to really 1 or 2 synesthetes, with the experiences of a couple others mixed in, things that I felt could conceivably go together in one character. Because
Yeah. And I
there's so many experiences just like all over the map. It's too much. What were you gonna say?
And I was gonna say, I think I love that you do show like the duality of, it the synesthesia actually being very difficult, especially like early on and when Maggie doesn't know what it is exactly yet and doesn't have
Yeah.
the support. And then, where it kind of does go to being less of a struggle because it does show that, that we were talking about that duality. Whereas, there have been points like as an autistic person, I relate a lot. It's like there have been points in my life where being autistic has been really, really, really hard. And especially when I was younger, like would have been something that I just like maybe might have wished away at different points in my life because it was like a lot of times I think back, it's like because the expectations were totally unreasonable. And like at home before I went into school, uh, I come from a very neurodivergent family. And so a lot of my traits were no big deal. Nobody raised an eyebrow at it. And people were like, oh, brilliant kid. We love this kid. And then I went to school and it was like completely a different flip on things. And so like the environment has a big issue, the amount of support I have a big issue, like with how it's going to be received and how I'm doing. And then, at the same time, it's like now that I've completely redesigned my life around being autistic, like I'm not really struggling with it. And it's like,
Yeah.
can I say I'm struggling in a clinically significant way at this point in time? I don't even know if that's true. Am I still autistic? 100%.
Yeah.
And will I struggle in the future? Probably.
Sorry.
And will I struggle in the future? Probably. Maybe. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Ebbs and flows of everything, as I say. And I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that, when things are tough, they will even out again. It's just sometimes they take forever. I've been dealing with chronic here for about a year and a half, and long, long, long story that I'm, hardly going to get into now, but it is hard sometimes to remember that things are going to reach a place of peace again.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Really,
I just love that. Like there's some hope in there. And
there is.
it was just really beautiful and really tasteful. And I really enjoyed the film. It was just like a sweet, wholesome, like rainy day, get cozy, watch a movie kind of a movie, which I mean, I don't know, right now I could use more of that in my
Yeah.
life.
Well, that's what I was really hoping for with that movie. It's the movie I always try to make, the entertainment that I would have wished to see when um, I would have wished I could see when I was that age. Like, it's not a movie for teen girls, but it's not a movie for teen girls. So
hmm Yeah, it's definitely like, one I definitely enjoyed as an adult, but I could see like watching this with like sitting down as a whole family and watching it like as a family movie that where the parents could really, I think, enjoy the movie too. And there's humor in there that, I think adults will laugh at, not like adult humor. And it's not like, sometimes they throw like a humor in there. It's kind of like raunchy and you're like hoping it goes over the kids. There wasn't any of that in there,
yeah,
It was sweet, but still funny and relatable even as an adult. So I think he did a really good job doing that and making it a true family movie.
I think there are odds and ends in there that are good for adults, but you know, um, some mildly adult humor or whatever. But I think honestly, in the end, it's a story. It's not a story for kids, but it is a story for anybody who has ever been a kid or ever felt
Mhm.
different.
Yes,
What it comes down to. It's
I
the
agree.
large potential audience, I like to think.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one, and yeah, I think it being a teen's like story, it really is perfect. And I do hope that even if you're an adult, even if you don't like have young people at home, you'll give it a chance, sit down and watch it, check it out, because it was if you want a feel good movie,
It is that.
Magnetosphere is definitely a feel good movie. Very sweet, very relatable. I don't want to give any spoilers because I think it's great. There's so many little twists and turns. It's very like it was just a beautiful little movie. So I hope more people check it out. Is there anything else you want people to know about the film, you, synesthesia, neurodivergence, anything really? Like, can you believe we've already gone through like a whole hour? It's gone so quick.
I
Like we literally just like scrapped 90% of our questions because it was like
I
we were on a
know.
groove.
They go down so easy. It all passes so easily as the time flies. It's a lot of fun talking to you.
I
Yeah.
mean,
No, I think, okay, so if people have grown up being fans of Whose Line Is It Anyway, you'll be happy to know Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway is in this movie playing a very silly character. He's a lot of fun.
he was
It,
awesome.
yeah, and for the younger folk among us, Stephen He, who's known on social media as like Asian Dad and Emotional Damage Guy, is also in this movie playing playing the love interest. This may sound odd. Playing the love interest of the main character, the like unattainable love interest who's like way older than she is. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And it's like it sounds odd, but it's like, you get it. Like when you're a
you,
young person and you're like have a crush on someone and
oh, you have no clue.
and even if they have no clue and it's like
No,
not quite appropriate and not like not a predatory way, like people hearing
you
this and haven't seen it. It's like, very like,
know.
"Oh no, I'm sorry, sweet young person. You're beautiful." But, it's yeah,
Yeah. And it is.
very very tasteful, very relatable too.
I think we've all been in that position where we haven't realized how inappropriate. Well, when we're 13, we've never been 13 before. It's like we've never been 13 before.
Hormones.
We don't know who's appropriate and inappropriate to have a crush on. We don't know, and there's a little LGBTQ subplot which is
I loved
very
that.
gentle, very, very gentle because it is a family movie, nothing that you would want the kids to see, nothing like that, but just has to do with the feelings we feel when we're teenagers and again, not realizing quite what we are and aren't supposed to feel and do and don't feel and that there is no supposed to, I guess.
And that was great to see too, because like with neurodivergence, we do see a lot of intersection between queer identities and stuff, and seeing that be in there and respectful and tasteful and just addressed in such a beautiful, wholesome way. And I won't spoil that one, but yeah, it was just really refreshing to see a very inclusive, welcoming, and affirming movie that affirmed many different identities, and like really that character arc for multiple characters throughout the movie where it's like they kind of are finding themselves and learning who they are. And it was just beautifully, tastefully done. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you. I mean, it's a spectrum of characters. It's a love triangle that I think is relatable to there's all these love triangles that exist.
Yeah. I was
There's
like, there's
love
multiple.
quadrangles and, five quintangles, I don't know. Anyway, watch the movie, enjoy the movie. If you do enjoy the movie, leave a quick word about it on Rotten Tomatoes and or Letterboxd and or
Share it, tell someone about it.
because word of mouth, I said this earlier, and I'll say it again, word of mouth is literally the only way independent films get known about because we do not have marketing, massive marketing budgets. A marketing budget for an independent film is like some boosted ads on Facebook. That is it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to appear on Substack lives and podcasts and things like that to talk about how great the movie is and how much you should see it because that is the only way you're going to know about it. And I'm very invested in this now. I want you guys, all of you you 52 folks who are watching this, I want you all to see it. And yeah, the title is Magnetosphere, which I'm going to type.
Yeah, drop it in the comments again,
Yeah.
and then tell people where they can find you too.
Yes. So here, on the title of the movie is Magnetosphere. It has to do with a 13-year-old neurodivergent girl discovering that she has synesthesia, where she can see sound and hear color, among other interesting things. Magnetosphere movie is the Instagram, and then there's a longer web address that you can go to see all the places that it's streaming, and I'm dropping that momentarily. It takes me a long time to write it out, so it's kind of
That's okay. And everyone, once it's there, copy and paste it really quick because I think when this live gets
go
reposted,
away.
it doesn't keep all the comments, which is really annoying. So if you want to like email all those back to me,
Oh,
I'll post them when I make the Substack post with the replay so people can find it too. I wish it would keep all the comments, but it doesn't, which I mean is kind of good sometimes for people's safety.
yeah. So I will. Yeah, that's a good point. I will email you those two links. It's just Magnetosphere's Instagram, and then our link. The link is to our distributor, but what it does is once you go there, some people are like, "Oh, it only shows the trailer." No, it doesn't. It does show the trailer, but it shows all the places that you can see the movie, which is Prime, which is Apple TV, which is Google Play, which is FiOS, which is I think you can see it on Xbox. There's all
Oh
this.
wow.
Yeah.
Good job. I love that. It's
I
available in many, many places.
Yeah, many, many places. For a little indie film, its reach is already wide. It is so hard out there for we have a system. This is not really the live to talk about it, but people that make independent films can barely get anything made because the system is basically there's superhero movies and there's Disney and that's it, and there is
Hmm.
for this stuff. There are countries, not this country, where there is funding, regional funding, national funding, where there's grants and there's stuff. Um, my movie link, yes, my movie link is above. If you go scroll up a couple comments, then it's at Magnetosphere Movie. And yes, you did good. Um, you know, uh, Independent films are extremely hard to make. This was just indescribably difficult to make. I don't know what's next for me, so I have to recalibrate and
Well,
somehow
I look forward to seeing what is next from you because
thank
this one was just a beautiful breakout kind of project, and
you.
I hope it is seen by as many people as possible because we need more neuroaffirming movies of diverse kinds of neurodivergent characters because there are so many different ways, like as we said at the beginning, that a person can be neurodiverse and neurodivergent. And so, it's just really, we need more of that positivity in the world right now, especially. So,
Speaking of, if you don't mind my closing out by saying this, because I must go in a minute.
yes.
I made a so Magnetosphere that I've been talking about. This movie is actually my second feature film as a writer director.
Okay.
My first feature film as a writer director is called Goodbye Petrushka, which I'm going to write in the
And I
comment.
haven't seen this one.
Well, it's freely available online, so I don't even have to send a screener. It's just it's out there on Tubi
Okay.
for free, and it's on YouTube for it's out there for free. I forget how it works. I know Tubi is free. Goodbye Petrushka is my first feature film. It is done on a tiny budget. It is, a starter feature in every sense, and that was always you know, the the intention. Um, it is also it has been read over and over again by neurodivergent people to be about an autistic main character.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
19-year-old. Now, this was not intentional on my end. Being neurodivergent myself is probably unavoidable, but
Hmm.
I'm not setting out to say, oh, she's autistic. That was not the furthest thing from my mind. It was more like, here's this character who has certain maybe fixations. She's very one track. She has a couple goals that she's not deviating from that are kind of the motor for her to make a lot of screw ups in the movie. Um, but take a look at that one. It is a very small movie. I say that not to talk it down, but just to say, Magnetosphere is an indie. This one's a micro.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check it out. That's
It
exciting.
it's cute. It's the lead actress is fantastic. I look at it again a few years later, and I'm like, wow, this was really, the actors were all brand new to it, so they're not kids, but they're very young. They're very fresh,
Hmm.
right out of drama school, and
Oh, I love it.
yeah, good stuff, and, I believe I have nothing more. Well, it's never true that I have nothing more to say, but I think I'm good. I think, go watch Magnetosphere, and if you think of it, drop me a line. I hope you enjoy it. Tell me what you think. I hope it resonates with you. You know, you may not have synesthesia. It may not resonate with you in, like, a personal way, but I don't know, sometimes the best films resonate with us in a way that's not too personal, so,
Yeah, it definitely resonated with me, and I don't believe I have synesthesia. I might, I don't know, but
yeah, hard to know.
it's hard to know because I know there's a lot of ways, and so we talked about that earlier too. But thank you so much for sharing your film with
You.
me, sharing your time with me, sharing with my community, and I wish you so much luck and success with the continued, getting this one out there and to getting eyes on it because I really hope more people see it because it really is
Bye.
a beautiful little film. And so, I thank you for everything.
And I'm gonna send you those links now so that you can put them in so that you can here you are.
All
Put
right.
the notes.
Beautiful. And
All
and like I said, everyone, the live will probably be up in about an hour. Substack has to process it. It emails it to me. I have to type it up and then I have to post it. So it will be, everyone can rewatch this. If you see some people just tuning in right now, sorry, we're about to log off, but there will
sorry.
be a replay if you missed it.
Thank you, Lyric. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. All
Take
right. Talk soon. Be
care.
safe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.